Hello children, how are you all? Let's do the question and answers of chapter The Secret of True Happiness. Answer each question briefly. First question: where did the statue of the Happy Prince stand? Answer is: the statue of the Happy Prince stood on a high column above the city. Second question: what precious things did the statue have? The entire body of statue of the Happy Prince was covered with thin layers of gold. There were two bright shining sapphire stones instead of eyeball. A bright ruby stone was placed in the handle of its sword. Number 3. Why was the prince called the Happy Prince? When the princess was alive, he was not aware of what tears were and what sorrow was. He used to live in a palace and was happy all the time, so he was called as Happy Prince. Fourth question: where was the swallow going? The swallow was going to Egypt as all his friends had all gone away. Number 5. Why did the swallow put off between the feet of the Happy Prince? The swallow put off between the foot of the Happy Prince because it was a fine place on the statue with plenty of fresh air. Number 6. What happened when the swallow prepared to sleep? When the swallow prepared to sleep, a large drop of water fell on him. 7. Question: why were the eyes of the Happy Prince filled with tears? The eyes of the Happy Prince were filled with tears because he could see all miseries, poverty, and suffering of the people in his city from the high column. 8. Question: why was the seamstress's little boy crying? The seamstress's little boy was suffering from fever and was crying for oranges to eat, but his poor mother had nothing to give him to eat. 9. Question: what did the prince do for the poor seamstress? The prince, through the little swallow, gave the ruby on the hilt of his sword to the poor seamstress so that by selling it she could get enough money. 10th question: it was a cold night but the swallow felt warm. Why? It was a cold night but the swallow felt warm because the bird had done a good act that made him feel warm. 11th question: what was the young man in the garret doing? The young man in the garret was a playwright. He was writing a play for the director of the theatre. It was too cold and there was no fire in the grate. He was feeling hungry and was finding difficult to write the play. Number 12. How was the young man helped? The Happy Prince requested the swallow to remove a sapphire from one of his eyes and give it to the poor playwright so that he could buy food and firewood and finish his play. Number 13. What did the swallow bring for the little rag picker? The swallow plucked out the sapphire from the Happy Prince's eye and put the jewel into the little rag picker's hand. Number 14. Why did the swallow decide to stay with the Happy Prince always? The swallow decided to stay with the Happy Prince to be his guide and help him because the Happy Prince had given away both of his eyes to people in need and was blind. Number 15. What happened when the swallow fell down dead? Answer is: when the swallow fell down at the prince's feet, a crack was heard and the prince's laden heart broke into pieces. Number 16. Why was the statue of the Happy Prince pulled down? The statue of the Happy Prince looked very ugly. It had lost all its gold, ruby, and sapphire, so the statue was pulled down. Number 17. What two things were thrown on the dust heap? The lead heart of the Happy Prince and the dead body of the little swallow were thrown on the dust heap. 18. Question: how were the Happy Prince and the swallow rewarded by God? God rewarded the Happy Prince and the swallow by giving them a place in heaven. The swallow will sing forever in the garden of paradise, and the happy prince will live in the city of gold. Now answer each question in detail. First question: why did the mayor order to pull down the statue? The mayor was shocked to see the dull looking statue of the happy prince. The ruby was fallen out of his sword, his eyes are gone, and he is no longer golden. It looked much too shabby and no longer beautiful. The mayor wanted to see the city look beautiful. So he ordered to pull down the statue of the happy prince. Number 2. Write a short note on the sufferings of the poor people in the city. In the city, the rich were making merry in their beautiful houses, and the poor were suffering and lived a miserable life. The seamstress in the city had no money to buy oranges for her son, who was crying and suffering from fever. The playwright had no money to buy wood, and there was no fire in the grate to keep him warm in the winter. The match girl belonged to a poor family. She sold matches to earn money. She was crying because her matches had fallen in a gutter. All these were the scenes of sorrow and suffering of the poor people in the city. Number 3. What message does this story convey? The story of Happy Prince conveys the message that we must do good to others and be kind, and help selflessly without expecting anything in return. True happiness comes from helping the poor and the needy. God loves them, those who loves others. The story teaches us a useful, true lesson. The prince and the swallow proved to be a great example of this. The happy prince gives all jewels for the sake of the poor. The swallow sacrifices his life for the sake of the happy prince. God blesses both of them and he gives them a place in his paradise. Number 4. The living beings always think that gold can make them happy. Comment. Money indeed had the power to make people live a happy life. They need food, clothes, and houses to live in. They cannot get these things if their pockets are empty. But money is not everything in real life. Real happiness lies in sympathy and contentment, which was required for real enjoyment in life. So it is not true to think that gold can make people happy.